This is the Beyond the Story podcast, a show that goes way beyond the story.
And now, Sebastian Ross.
Dan Henry's in the house. What's up, dude?
What is up? How you doing?
Man, if I was any better, my last name would be Henry.
That's good. I bet you say that to all the ladies.
Yeah, I do. Quite the ladies, man. So it's a terrible time for a single guy in Miami right now, like this social distancing, you know. So there's no dating.
Yeah, I guess you're not getting too many dates right now.
No, we're like, I'm planting seeds on, Bumble, yeah, if you will. So you and I were talking before the interview here.
Lay the foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? It's like giving away the free, give me your email address and I'll take you out for coffee after all this. So you and I talked a little bit before the interview here. I found you just via some random video that you shot with your phone, walking around and giving people a tour of your crib. And I've quickly learned that you were a marketer, and then started to follow you a little closer. And then your most recent book came out. I hit you up on Instagram, and I've talked to your team back and forth. And then somehow we were able to get on each other's calendar to chat about your brand new book. If you're watching this video right now, you're looking at the copy of Dan's book here. It's Digital Millionaire Secrets. This isn't a bunch of bullshit. This is a dude that actually went from nothing to something just by sharing and teaching people what he did in order to gain success. So that was the most attractive part to me as far as starting to consume your content, Dan, is the fact that, there's a lot of noise out there pertaining to marketing, and everyone and their brother has a course or has this expert, here's a picture of me on a Lambo. Here's how you can make $1 bazillion, overnight. And I would venture to say that 80 to 85% of those people have never even put in a fraction of the amount of work that it takes to really be successful, nor do they have a system and strategy in place. So
probably higher.
most definitely. And that's the challenge, is that as we navigate through this digital marketing world and things continue to change and algorithms change and systems change and people's response changes, I think what doesn't change is being human. And with all the noise out there, there's a lot to tune into and tune out of. But I think that was the main reason that I had sparked an interest in wanting to follow and consume your content and what you were doing, because you just seemed human. I mean, is that fucking weird these days? Or,
I mean, a lot of people try to fake it before they make it. But, the one industry you should not fake before you make is education.
Right.
Because then you're just teaching people stuff that is just BS, and the thing is, a lot of people think that you have to be this, and if you sell a make money product, you have to be rich to sell it. And that's just not true. There's a guy that I saw that he made like $500 a week off of eBay, and he sold a program on how to make money on eBay. And even though he made only $500 a week, which is nothing on eBay, people still wanted to learn how to make that money, that extra side income. And he ended up making like, 7 figures from teaching people how to make $500 a week on eBay. So you don't need to be rich to teach people how to make money. You don't need to be a bodybuilder to teach people how to lose weight. You don't need to be a famous musician to teach people how to play guitar. You just have to know a little bit more than them, and they'll be willing to pay for your knowledge.
So you were very keen on making a point that this book is in fact a playbook and a step-by-step tool to actually go do something and do what you've done. Not do specifically what you've done, but take your system and put it into play. Is that correct?
Yes. I always say that if I could go back in time and I could talk to my younger self, if I could go back in time and see my younger self, but I couldn't speak to them and I could only hand them a manual, this would be the manual I would hand myself on how to do it faster and with less mistakes and make it happen. So this would be it. This is the time traveler's manual to growing a digital product business.
If you're listening right now and you just can't wait because you're like, I got to grab a copy before I forget, it's Digital Marketing Secrets from Dan Henry, just like it sounds if you're listening to it. There's a link in the show notes too, and make it very easy on you for just to go right directly there and grab your copy. Grab a couple, share them with friends. I love buying books that are relevant to marketers.
The link that you have, because I had a couple of people get the link wrong. I just want to make sure it's right. It's digitalmillionairesecrets.com, right?
digitalmillionairesecrets.com.
There you go.
And that is in the show notes too. It's in the YouTube description. If you're watching a clip of this on Instagram, it's most likely in my bio. So the $1 million question, pun intended, is why'd you write the book?
I wrote this book because we live in a world where it is socially acceptable and encouraged to spend 70, 80, 90, $100,000 on a college education, sink ourselves deep into student debt before we even put one foot out into the world, all to wait 4 years to maybe get a $50,000 a year job, but likely will end up working at Chili's. And that is not okay. And there are millions of people out there in the world that have knowledge, even if it's entry level, that could change someone else's life, that they could profit from and they could help people by doing. And if the formal education system will not raise the bar, then we're going to do it ourselves. And so if you would like to profit from what you know and do your part, even if it's small, to change the world, then you need this book. And that's why I wrote it.
That's a great answer, Dan. Could not have said it better. Of course, I didn't write the book, so I wouldn't anyhow. But have you found that what are the biggest opportunities that have come out of dropping a new book and already being a success with your business and your brand? Has there been any new opportunities, or is this more of just like an act of service to be able to just continue to spread your message?
Well, when you write a book, it's funny because you do get it's sort of like like if you go on a show, right? If you go on a YouTube show or you go on a podcast or something and you say, hey, I would like to talk about this, and can you promote my webinar? Everybody's like, no, we can't promote your webinar. That's not cool. But if you have a book and you're like, can I promote my book? Everybody's like, yeah, promote the book. Yeah, of course.
Right. Right.
I think that's weird, but hey, so it's opened up that a lot more interview opportunities and speaking engagements as well. Which
I saw you were at Funnel Hacking Live this year, huh?
I spoke at Funnel Hacking Live. I did. Yes, I did.
Cool. I heard they replaced Tony Robbins with you. That's a lie.
Tony did his thing after me, and I skipped it because I was dead tired. And I've seen him like a million times. So
he's the best.
Yeah, and I didn't want to get sick because there was a little FHL flu going around, and I whenever you're at a conference, you can get a cold or whatever, and I was trying not to be hugging and jumping with people, so I was done. I was already because I did the speech, and then after that I did a round table. And if you've ever done a round table, you basically are sitting at a table where you have like 100 people all around you, all trying to ask you questions at the same time. And they're all like getting mad at each other, right, trying to ask you questions. And it's just the most exhausting and intense experience you could possibly imagine. But I was very happy to do it. It was a great time. It was super cool.
I've never been, but my buddy Devon Brown is the MC. So
yes, I'm so funny is Devon's a good friend of mine. He has emceed 2 of my events.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So I'm his backup. It actually works out really well.
That guy, if you could like take his energy and like pour it into a bottle and sell it. Yeah. Be a billionaire. Like his energy is, and I normally have a lot of energy, but I've done like 10 interviews in the past 2 days and I've got like 20 more to do. So I'm like trying to conserve my energy.
Sure.
He's that guy will go for 4 days and he will just be like 100% balls to the walls for like 4 days straight. And I don't know how he does it.
Yeah. No, listen, I would never recommend, I mean, it's tough to recommend, sure, this person can totally take over for me, but he really is. There's like 2 people that I would refer, and he's definitely one of them. In fact, I've filled in for him previously too, because he's living the MC dream. Well, we're paused right now, but had a pretty solid year, lined up this year, and was like, listen, I've got too many on my plate. How about I send you instead? And I'm like, the pleasure's all mine. He's actually a Miami guy. He went to my opposing high school down here in Miami too. So the world gets, and the first year I did TNC back in 2015, he couldn't do it. So I actually filled in, and I met Dice on Twitter. That's how I got that gig. I was like, hey, do you need a guy in a bow tie to rock your stage? And he's like, dude, your timing's perfect. And we had one mutual friend. I had no idea who Ryan Dice was. I call a marketer buddy of mine. I'm like, yeah, I just talked to this dude, Ryan Dice. They're like, what do you mean you just talked to this dude, Ryan Dice? I'm like, yeah, he was on his way to drop his kids off at school and booked me like on the spot. It was the first time, like, it was like my first major like commitment for like an MC gig. Cause I used to do this stuff for free. I used to just be like, hey, Dan, just let me in the door. I got a bow tie and way too much energy. Like, you want me starting this event and you want me ending it. And like by day 3, free, you definitely like, we need some Sebastian. So had a guy give me a shot way back when, and here we are. If I could do it all the time and only do it, I totally would. But I believe people definitely need my expertise in the world of podcasting. I feel the same about the course type of stuff. If I can help people get from A to B to tell their story by starting a podcast and providing value to the world that can inevitably shape and mold people's mindset. And that's really what I've become more and more passionate about. Of course, sharing my energy is a great asset too. People absolutely love it. But at the same time, starting 100 podcasts is a pretty aggressive goal, but I think that it's replacing radio. So let's talk about podcasting for a second.
Yeah.
Do you have a podcast?
Sure. It's funny. I've recorded about 50 podcast episodes and I haven't published them because, I'm very big on focus and prioritizing and executing.
Sure.
And so, for me to upload podcasts every day is not a big deal, but obviously I want to do like a podcast. Like when I go to launch the podcast, I want to do a intentional, podcast launch to get that first wave as much as possible. But I also know that, because I'm big on focus is, for instance, like the book, right? When I wrote this book in 30 days. And it was because every second of my day was 100% focused on this. I already had my team, fluent in everything. Ads are all running perfectly and my team knows how to manage everything. And once everything is managed, I move to the next thing and I focus on that. And that's how I got this book done so quick. And it being, it's not thrown together. If you've read it, it's, I had multiple professional editors go through it. All that happened in 30 days because I had 100% focus on it. And, it might have taken 30 days to write it, but it's a lifetime of knowledge. So, but with the podcast, it's something that I want to do. And that's probably the next thing on my plate after the book. And I'm going to call it the Dan Henry Show. But I really need to sit down and review what the best options are for launching the podcast. And I remember a few years ago, maybe like 5 years ago, I tried to launch a podcast. And as soon as they started asking me for RSS feed links and stuff, I was like, I don't know how to do this. I couldn't even get the podcast up, and I was like, I'm done. And I haven't come back to it in a while. So there's definitely a need for what you sell.
Oh, good. Well, let's just make it known right now on the episode that we have plenty of room for you here at the Podcast Launch Lab, and I'd definitely love to have a closer conversation with you. It's funny you say about, would you like to be on, can we promote my webinar? No, but we can promote my book. Same thing happens. Like if I wanted to call you and strategize about your podcast and better understand how I can tie everything I've already got going on with my end here, like it would probably be pretty hard to get a call outside of buying into your program, right? What's the alternative? Well, the alternative is interviewing on a podcast, right? Not to say that we would flush all those details out, but I now consider you a contact. Like I've had Dan Henry on my show. We're Florida buddies, on different coasts here. And chances are we'll continue in conversation and I'll probably see you in an event or end up joining your program, et cetera. But podcasts are a great way to be able to do that. Not that you need to forge new opportunities out there, but I think yours is more of like, okay, what other channel can I forge open to push my information out of? Because right now the audio world's not consuming it, right?
Yeah, for me, I remember a few years ago, if you messaged me on Facebook or you made a comment on Instagram, I would respond. But now we have 15,000 customers, and
wow,
if you message me anywhere, one of my team's gonna, pounce on you and talk to you.
Sure,
and it won't be me. So
that's
right. Just full transparency. But I guess that would be the two ways to get some advice from me is podcast or buying into the program.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So, in all transparency, I was just, Jack Nicholson's a big fan of the show. I keep telling him that he needs to create his own course, even though he's a seasoned actor. You know what he tells me?
I eat breakfast 300 yards from 4,000 Cubans who are trained to kill me. So don't think for 1 second that you can come down here, flash a badge, and make me nervous.
All right, Jack, settle down, buddy. My goodness. I just got this Roadcaster over here for the new studio, and I'm like having a field day. It's got all these colored buttons, and you just press buttons, and it's a new
What
sound.
is it called?
It's called the Roadcaster. Here, check it out.
Roadcaster, huh?
The Rode Procaster Pro. You got to cop one today and plug it into that Shure mic. You'll have a field day. It's awesome. And the cool thing about it, there's only 4 mic outlets. But let's say someone called into the show right now, like on my cell phone, I could hit the Bluetooth and patch the call in during the interview.
Really?
Yeah. How killer is that?
And is that it's got onboard EQ and compressors and all that?
It's got yeah. It's very limited as to what, like, if you look it up on YouTube, Rode has a full like demo of it, but it's like the size of a laptop, so it fits in a backpack. 4 mics will fit into it, and then it plugs right into my computer. So everything, all the sounds that go through and everything that happens on Zoom will happen because of the board. So
oh, that's neat. But it's got compressors and stuff on it.
I'm not sure. I don't have the answer to that question.
Well, how are you compressing your voice right now?
This pod mic right here is going. This is a mic that goes directly into the board with an XLR cord.
You don't have a compressor on it?
No.
Oh,
so this is all
compressed.
Yeah, because the Rodecaster, you can adjust your voice settings. I have a very strong, deep voice, so they have a setting specifically for that.
I have an Art compressor right here, and then at my office, I have a bigger, better compressor, which I might go get since we might be here for a while.
yeah. Check out that the Rodecaster Pro. I thoroughly
I'll probably grab one.
I thoroughly, and then the Rode pod mics are great too. Of course, you got the Mac Daddy, sure. So you definitely don't need.
Oh no, this is my B mic. My Mac Daddy is the our Electrovoice RE20. So
I got these things were $99, and they got the pop filter already in them.
I'm an audiophile. I love audio. Like I've got 2 Neumanns.
So you know the drill then.
Yeah, I know the drill.
This is all new.
I went to school for audio engineering.
Oh, okay. So I'm not telling you anything. So I'm not the guy to like compare notes with at all. I'm the talent that happens to ask questions when I'm getting mic'd up in the AV booth. Like, what does that do? Type deal. You know what I mean? Yeah, I didn't want to like get overwhelmed. I'm like, I don't want to turn this into like an audio studio per se type deal. But I mean, again, if somebody wants to come in and give me $150 to record their podcast for the hour, no problem. But yeah, technology. It's crazy to think that this is like mobile. I could throw this in my backpack and you could like a remote broadcast a podcast. So let's back up a little bit because, right now it's all rainbows and butterflies with your brand and everything that you've built, and you're continuing to grow and just do really cool shit. And I congratulate you on that, but it hasn't always been like that. Right. So if we can back up to the days where you didn't even know that you were a marketer, or what your next move was. And then when you realize, like, if we can just kind of rewind a little bit and go back to the beginning of the story.
Yeah. So I was, there's multiple points in my life. There's not one moment. It goes up and down, but I do remember one particular moment where I was going to school for audio engineering, and it was very difficult to pay my way through college. It was like $70,000 to go to this college. And I was hanging out at a Guitar Center one day, and I run into this guy, and he didn't know what microphone to choose. It was actually a kick drum mic he was looking for, and he was totally looking at the wrong microphones. And I helped him decide. And funny, based on what we were talking about, it ended up being an RE20 that he chose. Mm-hmm. And he was impressed with my knowledge of microphones, so he offered me $100 to come back to his house and teach him how to use his audio recording software. And so I did. And I'm walking out and I'm looking at this $100 bill, and I'm like, wow, that was the easiest money I ever made. And so I started doing $50 an hour sessions online where I would just, do a screen share, and I would help you with Pro Tools, which is the most popular software for audio production. And that's how I was paying my way through college. Well, then I'm thinking, well, this is great. I'm paying my way through college. This is great. And then I find out that the college had faked their accreditation, and they filed a big class action lawsuit, and a massive amount of students, including myself, dropped out because our degree was worthless. And, over the next 7 years, I was like, I really got to figure this out, how to become an entrepreneur. And I tried to scale the whole $50 an hour thing, but I didn't know how. And then I did multiple other businesses. At one point I owned a bar. At one point I was selling cotton candy at carnivals. It was crazy. And I had ups and downs, and eventually it got so bad that I was trying to sell water bottles on the side of the road. And there's a picture of me in a shirt that says $1 water in this book. And I was doing that just to pay my electric. And that was, and here, this is the image right here. Well, you can't see it really, but it's
You got to buy the book.
And yeah, we're like, it says water, $1. Super embarrassing. But and unfortunately, we didn't sell a single bottle of water.
Really?
And we were in Florida in July. I don't know how that happened.
Wow.
I think people just thought I was weird for standing out there doing
They're like, sure, that's water.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But, and then it got even worse. I got a letter in the mail from the IRS stating that I owed $250,000 in back taxes.
Yeah, they don't go away.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm screwed. So I eventually though figured it out, and I was able to, my first successful webinar that I did, we did $48,000 in a single day. Wow. I did it again a week later. I did $52,000. And I was like, holy crap, I just made $100,000 in 10 days. 30 days if you count my prep and all that. And I actually put that in the book. It's my 30 days to 100K blueprint, which is in the book. But what I did after that really helped me scale. And we eventually scaled to 8 figures. We've made over $12 million of my own personal digital products. And that's where I'm at today.
So wait a second.
I took that in. I'm sorry.
So wait a second. So you went from selling cotton candy to creating a course, doing a webinar, and that course. So walk me through that real quick. What did you set up?
Yeah. So to be more specific, what I did was I had learned Facebook ads when I owned my bar.
Okay.
And when I got real broke, I discussed it with my wife at the time, and we had this idea that I would run ads for local businesses. So that I didn't have to invest any money in starting another business. And I did, and that worked out really well for several months. I got up to like 15, 20 grand a month in Facebook ad clients from doing that. And after, maybe 6 to 8 months, I was starting to get back on my feet. I was in massive debt. And so I was starting to get back on my feet. And a lot of people were asking me, well, how are you doing this? How are you getting clients? How are you running ads? And I was real busy at the time, so I didn't really take the time to teach anybody. But then I got the letter. That was the exact moment I got the letter. And that was when I was like, okay, I need to make a lot of money and fast. And when I started researching, I found that the people that were making the most money the quickest were selling informational products. And so that's when I put together the informational product on how to run ads for local businesses. Mm-hmm. Did $100,000 in 30 days. Uh-huh. And then after $8 million, after we hit about 8 million, and that's when I decided to start teaching people how to sell digital products.
How much was the course?
I'm sorry?
How much was the course?
The original course?
Yeah. The one where you made 48 grand in 10 days or 100 grand in 10 days?
$997. Yeah. $997. And so after selling about $8 million of a $997 program, and all by myself, I didn't do JVs or joint ventures or anything. That's when I decided to create a program on how to sell digital products. I did not, my first program was not how to sell courses. It had nothing to do with that. So that's when I did that. And we've got massive results for our students. We have hundreds and hundreds of people that we've helped hit 6 figures, and a bunch we've helped hit 7 figures with their digital products, coaching courses. And
these are everyday people. These aren't seasoned marketers that know.
No. They're dog trainers, weight loss people that have never created a course. I got one guy that started with me from scratch. He actually got in my mastermind. He went all in, and he had never created a course, and now he makes $140,000 a month selling a program.
So your real success comes from, obviously turning people into marketing machines based on sharing their knowledge on what they're doing. But you really hang your hat on the fact that, like, not only does this shit work, like this program changes people's lives when they implement it and they start doing it. Would that be a fair statement? Because you
Yes,
talk a lot
because
about, I mean, you've got a lot of testimonials of people, and you can't just go out there throwing numbers around. People tend to frown upon that if it's not the real deal. You know what I mean? So you're talking about testimonials of people that are actually getting real life results.
yes. Well, we have awards that we give out for when you hit certain income goals. Like we have like the 25K club, the 50K club, the 100K club. And we verify people. We make them send us a video verifying their income and verifying their sales before we send out this award.
Sure.
And also, a lot of people, a lot of times people don't realize they can charge more for their digital product. And one of the ways I got Andy to, 140 grand a month was I got him to raise his prices. His program was $2,000. I got him to raise it to 5,000 and sell it over the phone rather than an order page. And that's when it just took off. And he was struggling to do 50 grand a month and breaking even on the ad spend. And now he's, more than doubling his money at 140 grand a month. So he's doing very, very well. But again, the people that get results are the people that show up, that do the work, that, take it seriously.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now with YouTube. I'm in the middle of a 90-day intense or 6-week intensive, but it's a 90-day program a good friend of mine has put together. And now it's because for a while, I know sometimes ego's like, well, I'm the one that's creating the course. I'm not going to join a course, which is total bullshit. Like there's magic in being able to tap into our peers and what we're not good at, they are. And I'm experiencing that right now with YouTube. And you've been doing, so speaking of YouTube, you've been pretty active on YouTube for quite some time now, no?
I've been sort of active. I haven't given it a huge, our main revenue comes from media buying. And, it's weird when you get to a certain level of media buying because you're like, I can make 50 grand a day spending money on ads, or I can spend the next 6 months building a YouTube channel, and it's like you tend to prioritize and execute. So I definitely want to grow the YouTube more and grow my organic more, but I always prioritize and execute. So I put, what is moving the needle the most right now is what I focus on.
Sure.
So yeah, we'll be doing a lot more YouTube stuff soon though.
Cool. Yeah, no, I I think YouTube is definitely YouTube and podcasting. It's the new TV and radio. Right. So
yes, I would agree with that assessment.
And we control. So would it be safe to say you've mastered being able to create something and then drive traffic to it? Was that an accurate statement? Because I think that's the biggest differentiator. Like I can go create a course this afternoon, but if I don't know how to drive traffic to that course, then it's not going to sell. I mean, so is the model still, let me give you something for free, put you on a list, and then ask you for something or invite you to a webinar? Does that model still work? Or
no. I don't wait for my money. We make most of our sales immediately. This whole idea that you need to pay for a lead, wait weeks, and then sell them something, that works when you're validating an offer. But if you run ads to a webinar and the webinar is good, really good, people will buy. And so with my students, I don't necessarily try to, and this is why I charge a premium price is instead of me saying, all right, well, let's do all this other crazy stuff that is easier, I just look at their webinars or I look at their ads and I go, well, it's not doing well because it's not good enough. Here's what you can do to make it better. Here are ways that are easier to get your point across than what you're trying to do. And when we do that, that's when they make more sales. For instance, Andy, who was selling the product for $2,000, right? He was working his butt off, but there was a better way, and we raised the price, had him sell it over the phone, and that made the difference. So I have to look at people's stuff and go, okay, here's the problem. Here's what you need to do. And that is the biggest thing. And most of the time it doesn't require you to wait weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks or months to make a sale. You can make a sale as soon as you start driving traffic. So that is, I think that's a myth, or it's an old school myth that you need to like build up an audience for a long, long time. Now, don't get me wrong. There's tons of people that buy that have been following me for a while, but a large portion of our sales are buyers that buy immediately. And if you're going to build a list, why not build a list of buyers? Why not build a list of people that are serious?
Right.
You know?
Well, the reason I asked that, I've been generating about 10 leads a day on Facebook, and I've been giving away a free podcast checklist. And it goes into a funnel, and I talk to people for 14 days, and I sprinkle in, do you want to schedule a call? But what I question out every day is that I've collected a name, a phone number, and an email address. So if I go back to the old days, like when my sales days 15 years ago, where my lifeblood was a new list of leads and being able to make sure I was on the top of the board every single week and being the top sales dog, what if I applied that to my business now as an entrepreneur, which is a completely different animal because you have to remain disciplined. Nobody's breathing down your throat. You're not going to get fired. If you don't call the leads, nothing's going to happen. I mean, specifically nothing. But are we living in a world where people like to connect with information online and then connect with people on a telephone call?
It depends on what they're trying to do, right? If you're trying to learn how to jump rope, probably don't need a phone call. And I know people that have made $1 million from teaching people how to jump rope. But if you are a lawyer and you want to grow your law practice, that's a phone call offer. You know, it just depends on what you're doing. And in the book, I do actually go over a lot of that. There's a section in the book on high ticket and versus low ticket, and it explains that pretty thoroughly. So it really just depends on your offer.
Well, I'm definitely intrigued here. We're definitely going to have to continue our conversation about what your program's all about, because I'm sitting here going, I know this thing sells. I just need to be able to scale I mean, hello, everybody wants to start a podcast, and I don't think that's going to slow down. And there's only 800,000 podcasts. So this is kind of a multi-purposed interview here. I'm a prospect and an interviewer at the same time. Interviewer, is that the right word? So I like to talk.
Yeah, I think so.
I like to talk a lot. I like to talk a lot, or not talk a lot about, but I like to shed some light on the mental health conversation in every interview I do in some form or facet, because I believe, now more than ever, the mental health conversation is not only relevant, it's always been relevant, but it's not taboo anymore. I personally experienced, 4 suicides from friends over the past 5 years. And that really resonated with my heart and wanted to be able to say, what can we do to talk about this? So, without specifically talking about like, oh, well, here's what's happened in the past, as the journey of an entrepreneur, like there's more doubts than there is confidence when you were started to sell Facebook ads after selling cotton candy. But like, there was probably a time on there, like, how does someone navigate their mental health as an entrepreneur while on the come up? I think that's the question I would ask you, having been on the journey and been through tough times before, and really obviously in better times now, but also get your 2 cents on mental health.
Well, it's sort of as if it's kind of like if you went to the gym and every day you're lifting weights and you're pumping iron, but then you don't eat right? You don't eat protein. You don't feed your body. Your mindset and your mental health go hand in hand with your business. I can tell you that, and this is 100% true. We do coaching calls every week for my clients, and every week, I would say about 90% of the calls are all boiled down to mindset. Someone will ask a question and they'll think that they're asking a technical question about Facebook ads or something like that. But, as we dig in, we find that it really does boil down to mindset. You know what I mean? So for instance, somebody will spend $10 on an ad and they won't get results, and they'll freak out and they'll try to change all this stuff. And I'm like, my friend, you spent $10. You're not even giving Facebook time to attribute the data. This is called patience. You have to have patience. You have to, and to me, that's not a Facebook ads issue. That's a patience issue, Yeah. And that's an issue of being calm and letting your plan play out and evaluate how it works. And so the other thing is, I can't get I'll give you a perfect example. And this is a fault of mine. Early on when we did high ticket sales, my sales reps were not closing. And I would get on the phone, I would close like 90%. And I would be like, why aren't they closing? And I'm trying to tell them what to do. Well, I ended up having an event with my mastermind. And that particular event, I was teaching them how to close high ticket sales. I taught them my whole process, my whole script, how to deal with objections, all of that. And they who are total beginners, a lot of them never took a sales call before, they went out and started closing 4 or 5 high ticket sales that very next week. And I'm thinking, and that's when I kind of like had a shift in my mindset. I was like, wait a minute, I'm treating my clients as clients. I'm treating them as students, and they're getting results, but I'm treating my employees as employees. So I made a shift in my mindset and I started treating my employees as students. And I gave them a recording of that event. I had meetings with them where instead of telling them what to do, I taught them what to do, and I viewed them as students, and I just took a different approach. And boom, all of a sudden their close rates went up. And to me, that's not a sales issue. That's a mindset issue. Okay. And so when you are going through this, and I talk about this in the book, it's funny you mentioned this. There's a section in the book called Developing Mind Control Powers. Okay. And this is very important because, and this goes right into your question. The chapter before this, which is Developing Mind Control Powers, the chapter before this is called is all about scaling your offer. Okay. If you don't mind, I'd like to read you just one page of this.
Yeah, please
okay?
do.
Keep in mind the context. The context, I just had an entire section in the book talking about how to scale your offer. So the final one, is called The Real Secret to Scale, and it's right before the section on developing mind control powers. And this is what it reads. It reads, this chapter will be the shortest in the book. As we come to the end of this section on scaling your offer, I'd like to let you know that the next section of this book will help you scale far more than the current one. Many things help in scaling your education business. Sure, there are advertising tricks, software systems, etc. But those things, like the wind, change. What doesn't change is your ability to focus, be productive, make good decisions, and above all, maintain a $1 million mindset. As we all know, superheroes do not exist. There are no mutants with mind control powers. Or are there? Most people fail because they let their mind run away with itself. They get distracted, move from shiny object to shiny object, or make poor decisions. The real villain in any entrepreneur's story is their mind. Your ability to control your mind is the number one thing that will allow you to scale. Some think that mind control powers mean you have the ability to control other people's minds, but I believe it is hard enough to control your own mind. If you could control your own mind, I would consider that a superpower. The next section of this book will teach you the closest thing to mind control powers that can exist in reality. So I believe that mindset is the number one thing because it's a trickle-down effect. If you don't eat, you can't lift, right? If you don't wear clothes, you can't survive in the cold. There's a cause and effect. And if your mindset isn't right, if you don't put just as much effort into maintaining and improving your mindset as you do a technical skill or copywriting or whatever, none of that stuff that you learn is going to work. It's like buying a plane and not knowing how to fly it.
Right. So mental, and I love that perspective in the fact that, mental health, depression's real. Some people are depressed clinically, whatever it may be. But I also firmly believe that there's a way out for everyone. And it does.
Well, why do you get depressed? You get depressed because of your mindset,
sure,
right?
Right.
That's why you get depressed. So if you are overwhelmed with, oh, I got to have a podcast. Oh, I got to have a YouTube channel. Oh, I got to have an Instagram channel. Oh, I got to have this. Oh, I got to have, and if I don't have all this stuff, I'm not gonna be able to sell anything. And then you're like, I'm overwhelmed. And now I'm depressed because I feel like I just can't make my goals happen because I'm overwhelmed.
Right.
Well, having the right mindset can fix all that. Like, for instance, you don't have to have a podcast, a YouTube channel, or this or that all at the same time. You can focus on one at a time. I never even ran YouTube ads until I hit $7 million in sales.
Wow.
That was all Facebook ads. And then once I figured I mastered that, then I moved to YouTube ads. And within 2 months, we were able to scale to $100,000 a month in YouTube ads.
Wow.
So part of, I always say, if there's leaves on the lawn, cut down the tree. Okay. So you go and you find the problem at its source. And most of the time, the problem at its source is the way you think. And if you change the way you think, it trickles down into everything from Facebook ads to depression to all of that, because you cut things off at the source. You realize that You don't have to do all these things that you need to do that are making you depressed or overwhelming you. And that is called focus. Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett, and Bill Gates all said that the number one thing that grew their business was focus. And I believe it was Steve Jobs that said, focus is not about choosing what to do, it's about choosing what not to do.
I love that. Yeah. Look, squirrel. Focus is not the easiest task on my list. That's why I'm really amped to have the studio now. While all this, self-quarantine and whatnot, I feel like I'm the only one here. So I kind of I'm like, now's the time to lock myself in this place, like get my money's worth and like create something cool. Because speaking of mindset, perfect time to chat about that, which is right now. I don't know when you're listening to this episode or watching this video or replay, but we're currently in the process of being on a mild, social distancing, self-quarantine, thanks to the coronavirus. And people are for all intents and purposes freaking out. And it's not all out madness other than the overbuying of eggs and toilet paper. But I think a little bit differently, Dan, because, I have faith. So I firmly believe that this is going to pass, as with other crazy things that have come about. I know this is one of the first for us, but I've got this overwhelming piece that's just like, this thing's going to be over soon enough, and we're going to be back bigger, better, and better than ever with new systems in place to be able to do things. And this is kind of a reset. What's your thought process, especially mindset, in the midst of all this COVID-19 coronavirus madness?
Well, we're not defined by, excuse me, we're not defined by how we behave and how we react in times of success and triumph. We're defined by how we behave and react in times of struggle. And so this right now is a time to really, more than ever, focus on making good decisions, focus on fortifying the castle, because eventually and very quickly, we're going to be back to normal. And if you spent this entire time moping around and being scared, then when the doors do open back up and the floodgates of sales and all this come back in, you're going to have to be ready. And if somebody else was ready because they were preparing, and you weren't because you were busy moping around, then you're going to have issues. So the biggest thing is to make sure that you focus, and remember that this is all going to work out. And do not freak out over things that you cannot control. The only thing you can control is your reaction to it, right? You cannot control what somebody else does. You cannot control a global disaster. You cannot control these things. You can only control your reaction to it. And the people that maintain the best reactions are the people that are going to win.
I agree with that. Yeah. Response versus react. And I kind of caught myself earlier this week. You wake up every day and you're like, is this going to be another day of like uncertainty or nothing? Or can you like just push that excuse to the side and say, that's a story that doesn't even exist. The reality is I still have the opportunity to create and to be able to put myself in a better position than I'm actually at right now.
Why? I just read that they're having a parade in South Korea because they are getting over the virus and everything, and they're celebrating.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I've heard reports, you never know what's true or not, but I've heard reports that, well, I'm pretty sure that the Apple report is correct, that they've opened 42 stores in China and everything's opening back up. So, if they're opening back up, then I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be getting through it too. It's a scary time, but you have to be diligent. And look, this is going to be the most productive time. We're all at home, right? Like, what else do we have to do besides work on our business?
Right.
So, but it's funny because it's telling, right? Look at Netflix. Okay. I just read a report today that they're telling Netflix to limit streaming because it's going to break the internet. So what does that tell you about the average person? It tells you that right now, instead of reading a book that'll help them growing their business, they're watching Netflix. Like,
I can't do it. I turn Netflix on and I'm like, I don't know what to watch. I don't care.
You want to hear something funny? I turned it on yesterday, and you know how at the top it has the most popular movies.
I'm like, never heard of them.
You know what the number one most popular watch right now is?
Outbreak.
Outbreak. It's Outbreak. I'm like, you guys are insane.
It is.
Like,
It's like, let's look for the worst case scenario here.
What are you doing? You know, come on, read a book.
Yeah.
Work on your.
I'm definitely reading your book over this. This is my COVID-19 quarantining. I will become a digital millionaire with Dan Henry's Secrets. You hear me, ladies and gentlemen? That was all. That was great advice regarding mindset. Round of applause there, ladies and gentlemen, for Dan. Yeah. So every episode I like to talk about my friends over at Poddex. Poddex created this nifty deck of cards right here. Actually, there's several now. This happens to be an interview deck. Dan, have you heard of Poddex before?
I have not.
Well, they're an interview deck that contains 50 unique conversation starting questions to help you take your podcast interviews to the next level and keep your audience entertained. So I say we bust out one of these cards and ask each other some random questions. How's that sound? Nothing incriminating. All right, good deal. We're running out of time here, so I'm going to make this one quick. Ooh, if you had to teach a class on one thing, what would you teach? Is that too cliche for Dan Henry?
Ooh, one thing. Well, I guess I would teach it on how to become a digital millionaire. I mean, I guess I would teach it on how to sell your knowledge online because that's what I do.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I would expect nothing less. Well, listen, this was a great conversation, dude. I like to talk about obviously what you currently got going on, which is the book, and I'm sure it's a smashing success and will continue to be. Those of you listening right now,
we've sold thousands we sold thousands of copies the very first day. That was pretty cool.
That's fantastic. Well, hey, dude, congrats on all of your success. Now it's a pleasure to be connected with you. I'd love to connect more offline and chat about about your podcast and also joining your program too, so we can figure out what that looks like. But I know you're a busy guy. Well, not that well. You're busy, but we're all home right these days. So to be able to get on your calendar and help you spread the word about your new book and your ongoing success, it's really great to be connected with you, man. It really is. It's fun to connect with real human beings these days, right?
Yeah. Yes. Hey, preferably.
Well, hey, thanks again for your time, and you'll have to come back sometime soon to the show.
I would absolutely love to. It was a good time.
Dan, you the man. I've been waiting to say that.
Thanks, man.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Beyond the Story podcast. Be sure to appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show. This way you'll get updates as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. Be sure to appreciate it. Signing off from the podcast, launchlab.com studios. We'll talk to you next time.